Let's say you had to save the world. Well, let's also say you suffered a very serious physical handicap. Could you do it? Well, this guy did because he was able to find strength in his weakness. Hey guys, welcome to 30 on Thursdays, the online resource of the Root Church of Tampa Bay. Pastor David here with you, and in this week's episode, I want to tell you the fascinating story of a man named Douglas Botter, because his life might just make you rethink the way you live your life. Douglas Botter was born in 1910, just as humanity was learning to take flight. Now, this newly discovered frontier beckoned to the brilliant and rambunctious Englishman, so as soon as he could, he joined the Royal Air Force College and took his fiercely competitive nature to the skies. And he soon discovered that he was as good at racing planes in the clouds as he had been at racing motorcycles on the ground. So it didn't take him very long to qualify as a pilot. But Botter was a daredevil at heart. So not long after acquiring his wings, he began competing in air shows. Now, his preferred plane was the newly designed Bristol Bulldog, a biplane he could twist and turn in maneuvers that dazzled spectators all over England. However, during an air show in 1932, tragedy struck and Botter suffered a terrible crash while attempting a low-altitude stunt. Now, he survived the ordeal, but both of his legs had to be amputated, one just above the knee and one just below. Doctors told him he'd never walk again without crutches, but Botter was determined to prove them wrong. So with the assistance of dual prosthetics and a monumental amount of determination, Botter not only regained his ability to walk, but he learned to drive, to golf, to dance, and yes, even fly an airplane. However, in spite of his inspiring recovery, he was still discharged from the RAF in 1933. Upset but unwilling to burn any bridges with his superiors, he simply told his officers that he'd be ready to return should they ever need him. Well, they wouldn't have to wait very long. You see, that same decade, World War II broke out all over Europe, and the RAF invited Botter back to service. The double amputee eagerly answered the call, but when he learned that his position would be limited to administrative tasks on the ground, he hounded his superiors until they allowed him to apply for full operational status, something he achieved with ease and his usual amounts of flamboyance. And Botter's reinstatement wasn't a moment too soon. By the time he was cleared for combat, England was fully embroiled in the global war. Botter saw action over the European mainland and in the skies over Britain, while his squadron did all that they could to stop the Nazi advance. However, many of his peers and almost all of his superiors doubted Botter's combat readiness. After all, not only did he have artificial legs, he had been out of practice for several years, and more importantly, the aircraft now being used by the RAF were far more advanced than the old Bulldog he had crashed years earlier. The new Spitfires could go faster and turn tighter and fly higher than anything Botter had ever piloted. And yet, Botter not only kept pace with the other pilots, he actually outperformed them. He became an ace during the Battle of Britain and then racked up 17 more enemy kills for a total of 22 confirmed kills. And this number doesn't include his many shared kills or his probable kills or the aircraft that he destroyed on the ground. Botter's almost insane amount of ability confused the RAF's officers and infuriated his fellow pilots. I mean, how could a guy with only half his legs be this good? Well, as ironic as it might sound, Botter was such a great pilot because he only had half his legs. See, in the breakneck speeds and tight turns of a dogfight, a pilot is subjected to tremendous amounts of G-force, which pulls blood away from the brain down into the legs and feet, which can cause the pilot to black out and crash. However, because Botter's legs were half prosthetic, more of his blood could stay closer to his brain than was possible for the other pilots. This meant that Botter could be far more aggressive in his plane than his fellow pilots could be in their planes. As crazy as it sounds, Douglas Botter was actually better suited for dogfighting because of the injury he experienced years earlier. His disability had turned into a strategic advantage in the cockpit. See, what everyone saw as a weakness was actually his strength. Some of Bader's admirers even later joked that he had a leg up on the competition. Well, Bader went on to survive the war, even though he was taken prisoner after having to bail out his plane over enemy territory. And then he made a profound impact during peacetime as well. In fact, in June of 1976, he was actually knighted by Queen Elizabeth, not just for his war efforts, but because of the service that he rendered to other people with disabilities. Guys, in one sense, Sir Douglas Bader was a living, breathing example of what the Apostle Paul spoke of in 2 Corinthians chapter 12. In that ancient passage, the weary Christian leader recounted the encouraging words that Jesus shared with him during a particularly low and painful moment in his life. He wrote, "Jesus said to me, 'My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. For the sake of Christ, then, I'm content with weaknesses, insults, hardships, persecutions, and calamities. For when I am weak, then I am strong.'" Guys, Paul, he learned to welcome weaknesses because it gave him the opportunity to reveal Christ's strength to the world around him. Are you willing to do the same? See, guys, you can run from your weaknesses. You can try to justify your weaknesses. You can even deny that they exist. Or you can embrace your weaknesses, knowing that Jesus will reveal his glorious power through you to the world around you. The old school preachers were fond of saying, God doesn't always call the qualified, but he always qualifies the called. So with this truth in mind, how will you allow Christ's strength to radiate through your weaknesses? We'd love to hear from you. So put your story or your experience or even your future plans in the comment section below. And we'll see you right back here for our very next episode of 30 on Thursdays.